Hey, what's going on, everybody? It is the weekend of February 21, 22. I am just doing my kind of weekend prep. So this is what I normally do and just kind of walk through everything. Just helps me kind of stay on point. Here with my coffee, it is a nice morning, getting the day started, and so we're just gonna run through everything. I'm looking at everything fresh with you, and so we'll just see what we see. So first thing I like to check is what's coming up in the week, and so checking out Financial Juice. So on Monday, it looks like we have, is this Monday? No, this is, here we go. So Monday, it looks like we have some factory order release. So apparently that might be something to pay attention to. Consumer confidence on Tuesday. So this will be good during the open. So that's something, don't get too crazy in the first 30 minutes. Let that kind of shake out. Wednesday we got oil inventories, which, not too worried about. But then we do have NVDA earnings, so that will be pretty a big deal for the Qs and SPY. So that is something I will be kind of paying attention to and kind of reading up on leading into Wednesday. And then Thursday, jobless claims, great. So good volatility. And then we got PPI on Friday. So that's pretty cool. I would say it'll should be a good week next week with volatility and a lot of range, hopefully. Especially with NVIDIA earnings. So I think this will be like the whole AI narrative that AI is going to change the world and all that. So let's see if that continues to be the case. So that's pretty exciting. Um, Trump schedule, I don't really look at this, but I guess we can look at it now. Um, Anything crazy that's going to happen today? Oh, I guess it's kind of, well, I guess it wouldn't show the future because that would be like a security risk, right? So today, what do we got? Policy meetings and nothing out of the ordinary, it looks like. So hopefully nothing crazy happens over the weekend. So there's that. So as far as price, so it's interesting, like we've had, Friday, it's like, okay, we're super bearish, making new lows. And then Monday, was Monday a holiday? Maybe, yes. Yeah, it was a holiday. And then Tuesday made another low, closed red, but then started to kind of eke back up. So higher low, and then had this big outside candle on Friday. But, if you kind of zoom out, we are stair stepping back up. And, there's obviously this zone. I think we talked about it last weekend when we did the video. There was a zone of like the 2400s just to see if this holds, and it looks like it did so far. Um, so, we're kind of at this breakdown resistance level, and here's that wonderful range that we've been in. So we may just get back into the range. That's what it looks like for the Qs. So we'll see. I think Nvidia could kind of, depending if it's really bad, maybe we break these. If it's good, maybe we get back into the range and start flirting with highs again. We'll just have to see. Um, I would say same narrative with SPY, except SPY is kind of more in a definitive uptrend compared to Qs. We're kind of in this range, but I would say the same kind of applies there. I guess other interesting tell for price, anyways, if you look at, um, Friday we broke the lows of Wednesday. We kind of did that on the ES, but like it's kind of holding, right? Like it's pretty relatively flat, like not significantly like breaking, you know what I mean? Um, well, I mean, I guess maybe it is flat with Wednesday, so relatively the same, I suppose. So we'll just have to see if this line holds, right? Like this seems pretty significant from a day trading perspective. So we will see how that holds or not. Um, but yeah, it looks relatively the same as you kind of zoom in. So there you go. Gold, we are, I talked about this level being a potential short, and it looks like it's becoming good resistance level. And so we'll see if it's tested at 1, 2, 3. Is that a triple top? And do we break down from there, or do we break above and break out? We'll keep an eye on that. VIX trying to eke up higher. We'll see. I mean, there's lots to be scared about, I guess, with all the Epstein stuff and impeachment and who knows what. So, we'll see how that goes. Um, let's see. YM is up. nice uptrend here, kind of consolidating into a flag, it looks like. So we'll just see how that pans out. Um, but it does look like we're rotating out of YM back into SPY and Q the last day or so. So there you go. Same thing with RTY. But we are like lower highs, right? Like we're kind of eking up there. So, it feels like people are still putting money to work. Nothing really, yeah. I mean, it looks like people are trying to push us higher, so we'll just kind of see how that continues. Um, and I guess we'll look at our ATAS really quick. So what I like to look at is how our futures are comparing to the ETF, specifically really just looking at like the delta for volume. And so I've updated these charts just to be more uniform, um, just because the settings for imbalance and everything are just different between ETFs and the futures, and it's not exactly the same. And so what you're looking at is basically cumulative volume delta or volume delta at the bottom, then price is colored by delta. So green delta is white, bearish delta is gray, and then you have the yellow, which is basically your point of control and your value areas. And so this way, we're looking at everything kind of equally. What I like to look at is just looking at the last, how Friday closed. And so you can kind of see here in the cues, more selling, like bearish on the delta, um, on the cues, but then more buying on futures. And, um, you can kind of see like and so what is this? This is, yeah, Friday, and then we look at Thursday, right? So they agreed there was more delta or more bearish, but then we ended up going the other way, so that's pretty funny. So I just like to see if there's agreement there. So there's no agreement there in the cues. On If we look at the SPY, there is agreement. A lot of bullishness here, a little bit of bullishness on the futures, but there's agreement there to the upside. So it's interesting. So no agreement on the cues, but definitely agreement to the upside on the SPY. And then for gold, there's agreement, it looks like, to the downside on Friday. um, yeah, on both bearishness on volume there. So it's just something to watch. So everybody was agreeing to the downside, but price said, nope, we're going to go up. But also maybe that happened towards the end of the day since we're at that resistance level. And so maybe we kind of go back down on Monday. So we'll just kind of see, keep an eye on that. I'll post my levels pre-market once everything opens up on Monday and see what that looks like. But just kind of interesting tells that I like to look at. Uh, yeah, no discrepancies where the most volume was traded, it looks like. If we look at the cues here really quick. We look at the cues. I think if you can, well, I think the point of control disappears. Yeah, so point of control is about here, above the high of yesterday. Point of control is above here, above that high, so nothing out of the ordinary there. Interesting here, it looks like more buying at this level on the cues, and yeah, similar, more buying there. So no big discrepancies that I can see so far. So we'll just kind of see how all that kind of plays out on Monday when we look at the charts in more detail. But all in all, it looks like we got agreement with SPY on the upside and with gold on the downside, mixed on cues. So we'll just kind of keep that in mind. um, I like to look at the options flow as well, just to kind of see what things kind of look like over the last 7 days. Trying to push higher. What is this, Wednesday and Friday on the calls for cues. SPY Friday, we're betting more on the upside on calls. Gold, interesting that we're betting more upside on Friday, even though the volume and the volume delta is more bearish. So some divergence there, but for SPY, there's agreement. Everybody's like, hey, up we go. So keep an eye on that. VIX looks like we were expecting. We're betting for more downside a little bit. So maybe things are going to cool off with support, which would support SPY going up. Upside bets on Friday for the Dow and mixed for RTOI. Um, is what it is. We'll compare, and I guess for the holdings for Friday, so bullish on Qs. Yep. everything agrees between the ETF and the holdings, and then bullish on SPY between the ETF and the holdings. So it looks like, at least for Friday, and zero DTE is like 60 to 80% of volume premium, options volume premium on a given time period, right? So it's mostly day trading bets, right? So it looks like either they're expecting us to go up on Friday or they're betting for us to go up on Monday. So there's that. So we'll definitely keep that in mind. Other thing I like to look at is gamma exposure levels. So I'm all into inflection points and different levels and looking at, obviously price support and resistance, your order flow levels with imbalance and absorption. And I also like to see GEX levels because gamma exposure basically will tell you what dealers should do, what type of hedging they should do, meaning that if it's positive, then they would likely try to keep price around those levels, and if it's negative, then they would likely push price in whatever direction that it'll spike. And so generally the way I like to trade those is if it's green or positive gamma area, you don't try to look for like big follow through. And maybe you look for quick like reversals or pullback type plays. And if we're in this negative gamma situation, maybe you look for continuation, basically. Um, and so I like to look at these levels. This is a cool little app that I found. The reason I like this is because it has an integration with TradingView where it plots these levels directly on my TradingView chart. So it's really good. But given that I am really all in on the ATAS platform, I have found that there's this other kind of platform called GexBot that does have an ATAS integration, but I'm waiting for them to support ATAS X. And I think once they do that, I may make the transition just to kind of consolidate everything on one chart. But for now, I do like to look at this just to see what levels to pay attention to. And so for NQ, I guess going into Monday, so you can see a lot of call resistance here at this 25,350, and it's a green positive gamma situation. So I feel like if we go that direction, we'll kind of stair step between these levels, stair step, push, slowly kind of grind up. But then if we lose this low of this 24,700s, we're now in this negative gamma exposure kind of level, and then, or profile, and then we probably would break down and kind of spike a bit more. But I guess going into next week, this 25,330s is interesting to watch, and also this 24,710s. And going into Tuesday, 24,710s holds. Looks like the highs seems to be interesting, and then you go into, I guess, towards the end of week. So this 24,710s is big. So I think this is like a line in the sand for support. So it's something to watch. And this 25,330s is kind of an interesting level. Obviously, that'll change as the week opens up and people buy more options, but I definitely like to just kind of keep an eye on that. So these are like the open positions going into next week. And if we look at ES really quickly, similar, looks like similar, although the resistance is above 7,000s, which is not really surprising. Oh, interesting. So you go into Tuesday, and so I guess we have more room to the downside before we hit this support level. So that's something I'll keep an eye on. And then later in the week around there. So that, for now, we'll just kind of keep an eye on this and all that. Let's see for gold. So this doesn't do a conversion for GC, so you have to look at the ETF. But also, there's no zero DTE on GLD. I think they only have weeklies. And so, yeah, like our levels in the sand are much, much lower. But you can kind of see for gold, there's a lot of positive gamma here. I feel like we're just going to stick around. Um, yeah, we're just going to probably grind up and just stick around these levels, it looks like. Yeah, look at that. Towards the end of week, big level that we're working towards, and maybe we're just going to stick around getting up to it. So I'll keep an eye on that. So that's what things look like there. And actually, yeah, I think we're probably going to stick around these price levels the next few days if you subscribe to the whole gamma exposure thing. So there you go. All right, so moving into the top 8 equities. So first off, again, I think I said this last week. I'm really excited about CME introducing single stock futures. I am so looking forward to that. It's going to be so great because I mean, you look at these charts, like how much opportunity there is just if you traded these. So it's going to be super good. But for NVIDIA, it looks like NQ. Apple kind of looks like NQ. Microsoft, oof, close that gap. I mean, this is wonderful, you know. Broadcom looks like SPY and NQ. Amazon breaking down, and then but we do have these gaps that we can close back up to the upside. Looks like we're coming back to life. So let's see. Tesla looks like the NQ. Meta, a lot more swings there, and then Alphabet looks like SPY and NQ right there. Um, so when I look at it, you know, holding up, holding up, holding up, holding up, holding up. Majority of them are holding up, but we have one, two really breaking down, but the majority of them are holding up. So, you know, I kind of use that as my sentiment for NQ and SPY. I mean, maybe we're going to hold up and turn, especially if Amazon and Microsoft can make a turn because they're relatively weak. If they can make a turn, I think that gives everybody else fuel to kind of make their turn, which would kind of push us up higher. So I guess we'll see. Now, if Nvidia breaks down with earnings, then I think Nvidia is going to bring us down, right? Because I think it's a big chunk of the Qs. Last I look, like I want to say 8%, but maybe that's too big. But anyway, so definitely keeping an eye on Nvidia, and we should probably put some alerts here just to see if that really breaks us past this resistance. There's that level, and if we break this, then that is dangerous for the Qs and for SPY. So we'll just see how that goes. Um, I think for options flow, the interesting thing is everybody on Friday, I guess that we know that that earnings is coming up. Look at that, like 180 million in net premium for calls. Shit. So I think there's an expectation for upside for sure if you're following the options. So that is something to definitely keep an eye on. Um, yeah. So there's that. Apple had some big bullish bets. Haven't. It's like on this day we had big bullish bets, and then there was resistance here on price. We broke down, so they're not happy. Maybe they're trying again. So we'll see. Microsoft, more bearish bets. Interesting. Muted on Broadcom. Amazon, a little bit more bearish bets as price tries to rebound. Meta, look at this Meta. But I mean, it's like a lot of bullish bets here, but look at how much bearishness there was. All these call options, right? So there's that. Google, Thursday, a lot of call options or put options. Friday, a lot of call options, and then prices going up. So let's see. I mean, people are still betting to the upside, but I'm super paying attention to this Nvidia just piling into the longs there. So I think that says something about expectations. So we'll see how we go. All right, so moving to sectors. Again, I just like to see how things are going. Technology is holding up, so that's like the Qs. Financials holding up, so that's like SPY. Consumer discretionary holding up, so that's like SPY. Energy is up. I mean, that's defensive. Healthcare is up. Industrials up. Staples are up. Utilities are up. So I think obviously we've been rotating into the defensive type sectors, while the growth sectors are kind of sideways. So we'll see if we rotate back into those, see how we go. As far as options flow for the sectors, ooh, bearish bets on tech or hedging. Um, and then didn't do 7-day on this one. I guess some bullish bets on healthcare there, which is fine. Yeah, nothing really stands out. The only thing is the bearish bets here on tech. If we look at the Friday holdings, we were more bullish on options, but then on actual shares traded, more bearish. Friday on the financials, muted on options, bullish on shares, mixed on XLY, bearish on energy. So that's interesting. Price is kind of up, but we're kind of bearish betting. Neutral on options, bearish on shares. Industrials, mix on options, bullish on shares. What is P? I forget what P is. Oh, consumer staples, bullish on shares, but mix on options. Mix on options. Started to turn bearish on shares. So I guess we'll see. It's interesting that tech was, I guess calls started picking up on Wednesday on the holdings, but then when you go to the ETF, it is more bearish. So we'll just see how that plays out with NQ. It's kind of same thing with financials. And then for XLY, kind of in line. So definitely watching this divergence in technology, right? Like bearish bets on the ETF, but then I guess shares are bearish, but then bearish on the shares, but then calls are kind of picking up. It's probably NVIDIA, right? It's all NVIDIA. So we'll just see how that goes. All right, cool. Moving on to the next. So just looking at dollar, treasury yield, Bitcoin, oil, and metals. Dollars, they say it's going down. It is going down, still still consolidating where it's been. So there you go. Treasury note yields just consolidating really. Bitcoin down. I was wondering if this 7400s would hold last week. It broke it, and so now we're in this area. Um, let's see if we get lower, get below 50, which would not be good for folks. And then maybe if we get to 30s, maybe that's when you buy again. Who knows? We'll just see how the Epstein, how that rumor kind of pans out if he's really the Bitcoin creator and all that. Oil is in a downtrend, but we got some news on oil, I guess. So maybe that'll do something. So let's see for metals, it looks like everything's kind of following gold, but I think gold definitely looks the strongest. It's testing its breakdown level where everybody else is a little further away, actually a lot further away from that breakdown level. So if gold can, so we have to see if gold will be the leader or if these other names will weigh us down like silver, right? Hmm. Yeah, it's interesting. Gold is the strongest. It is at a key resistance level where it broke down. None of the other metals are near that breakdown level. I mean, copper doesn't really have a clean breakdown level like that, but like palladium here and silver's way up here. Um, so I don't know. Maybe the metals get weighed down. So that is something I'll be looking at next week, especially because it tested it once, twice, three times, and didn't quite do anything there. So we'll see. I might be open to taking a short on GC next week. We'll keep an eye on that. As far as options flow for Bitcoin, muted. Oil seems a little bit muted. Uh, we saw that before, but bullish bets on gold. Silver muted, palladium muted, and bullish bets on copper. So, I mean, I guess they're betting bullish on metals, so maybe I'm completely wrong on that short. So let's see. Um, and yeah, I guess to wrap up, so I built this kind of table. It looks at um price in relation to moving average, and it uses kind of a range and a percentage clamp to indicate if it's bullish or bearish type of thing. Looks like NQ and ES are barely bullish. Gold is bullish. So overall slight bullish there on kind of the macro things we care about. Slightly bullish. Top 8 equities. Microsoft and Tesla are down, but overall slightly bullish. So that's interesting. Even sectors are slightly bullish at the close of Friday. So we'll just see if that translates into next week. And so yeah, that brings me to the end of my review. I would say, I guess, kind of looking back at ATAS-X, I yeah, I think it really just depends on earnings for NVIDIA of where we're going. Um, and even if we do spike up, there's still a lot to work through before you get to new highs on the NQ and even ES. So we'll kind of see how that goes. Um, but if earnings are good and we flush down, it might be a good buy the dip situation. But who knows? Maybe earnings are good and maybe, we just break down because it's good. Who freaking knows? But yeah, so we'll see how things look. I'll mark some levels on Monday pre-market and we'll just kind of see how we go. All right. Well, that's it for me. Good luck. Hopefully this was helpful and don't get caught. Thank you.